Okay. Everybody breathe a sigh of relief. That was your breathing?
Yes.
Okay. So, as I have said to Sarah beforehand, technically speaking, it is lagging Discord-wise, but it's not saying my stream is lagging. So, to her, I might be a robot. To me, I'm also a robot.
Well.
So thank you. Now, today is a doozy. I made stuff. A big thingy. Not as big as the Luna one, but I did make it. Because I figured there's less to cover, but also there's more personality to it. And you can do with that what you will.
Which one do you like more? Do you like Luna more or do you like Perfume more?
Overall, Perfume. Okay. But I like what Luna did for a K-pop group.
Mm-hmm.
Which we'll get in, not to Luna, but to what Perfume's done just in general. But, first things first. Go on, Sarah. What's your weekly obsession and D&D update?
Well, the D&D update, we didn't have D&D last night.
You did? I thought you did.
We did not. Yoshi wasn't feeling good, so we didn't have it.
Loser.
We were also missing someone because someone was celebrating their birthday.
Loser.
So we were missing 2 people. And we're in the middle of a boss fight. But where we last left off, we had found... at least I'm pretty sure this is where we last left off with the D&D update. We found a scepter.
Sure.
No, we didn't. Well, no, we found the place where the scepter was supposed to go. The scepter is in the hands of someone who is losing their mind because of said scepter. And these giants, like the spirits of these giants, started talking to us and invited us to take these amulets, like these magical artifact amulets that give us special powers.
Mm-hmm.
And we started off with only 2 of us had grabbed them because the other 2 did not like how these giants were speaking to us. It's like, fuck off. And so me and our fighter took some amulets, and that let these, like, the spirits of these giants, like, kind of look around in our heads a little bit. The fighter let the giant do that, and then my character's like, no, fuck off, don't do that. Excuse you, motherfucker. And there was an entire thing where some questions were answered, but more questions were made, in regards to, like, the dragon marks and what's been going on with these people, like with the zombies, as we're calling them. And eventually was able to set some ground rules with these giants of, like, here, you're gonna call us by our names. You're not gonna try and take over us, like that scepter's doing to that guy. And we're gonna work together to get back your scepter. And we're able to grab Yoshi's character, the bard, and then our warlock, and be like, okay, go take the other amulets. And so they did. And then we entered the boss fight, basically, which is I thought we would be fighting the guy with the scepter, but no, we're just fighting the scepter.
Okay.
That is just like this elemental force, because something I can't totally remember exactly, but the cargo bay that we're in started flooding because something punctured the side, and so this place is like half flooded, and now we're with this we're fighting against the scepter that is mostly utilizing elemental powers. Specifically stuff like fire, lightning, and I think cold are the main ones that it's using.
It's funny because you consider it water since there's flooding, but...
Yeah. But... So we're in the middle of fighting it all. And my character's entire thing is lightning more often, is like literally a storm kind of thing, as a storm sorcerer. And so it's like so my character is being very deliberate about not using lightning, anything lightning based, because it's like, I don't want to fry my friends that are in the water, because they're levitating right now. They have they have levitate, so aren't really flying, but they are able to, because it's such a small space that they're able to like drag themselves around easily. So they're essentially flying, rather than dealing with the difficult terrain of water. And we're all fighting, and our warlock has even sent us like, they're just trying to see what this guy might be resistant to or anything, and is like just going through all the different elemental weapon stuff, because their amulet gives them the ability to imbue a attack with an elemental ability, like an elemental thing, and we're all just like, oh god, don't use lightning.
That's the one thing it's weak to.
Highly doubtful. But it's forming like this hurricane in the small space that is causing havoc. But because of how like the functions of the amulet, we're not really in that dire of straits, because we have ways of using the amulet to heal ourselves, to get slots and everything like that. And our DM has told us just like, yeah, no, it'll be fine. This absolutely isn't a setup for anything harder. Just like, oh no.
Well, maybe you get to use the scepter.
I don't know. It'll be fun if we can, but I don't think that's where that's leading. Because he has said though that we will get to keep the amulets to some degree. Like this isn't just like a one-off thing. So I don't know. I don't know how that's gonna go. But that's kind of where we're at, because we're in the middle of the fight still, so we haven't really gotten much farther than that. But as far as my actual weekly obsession, that has gone on, okay. You know I'm autistic, and you know I hyper focus on things to a unhealthy degree.
Yep.
Some might say, at least. Like you've seen me with One Piece, with Pokemon, all of that stuff. When I tell you that I didn't realize it could get this bad, like genuinely, the amount of obsession I've had for this it surprised even me, especially because it felt like it came out of fucking nowhere. My obsession over the past 2 weeks has been specifically the character Hunter from the Owl House.
Okay.
And it all because I was already watching like Danny Mata's reactions to Epic, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch some of his other reactions, and so I watched his Gravity Falls one, and in both Epic and in Gravity Falls, he's talking about how much he loves the Owl House, and I'm like, I really like the Owl House too, but it's like I didn't really ever grow that attached to it. But I was like, I'll watch his reaction. I thought it was good. It wasn't one of those things that was like, yes, this is gonna become my personality for the next few months. No, I was just like, the ending made me cry, but you can make me cry by showing me a video of a puppy. It's not that hard. But so I watched his reaction to the Owl House, and the reaction was fine. He pointed out some things that I thought were very interesting. But the thing that was is that he didn't even like the character that much, or like he didn't draw that much attention to the character that much. But for some reason my brain was like, yes, I remember liking this character. And when I tell you, it has been intense and unprecedented, at least to my experience, the amount of obsession I've had with something like this. Because it was something, it's been a case where the Owl House does not have a lot of content, unfortunately, in terms of canon content. It's only 3 seasons because it got canceled by Disney, and the 3rd season is just basically 3 hours because it's 3 episodes that are like an hour long.
Damn.
And my character that I like only first appears in season 2, and even then only has like 5 or 6 episodes that he's even really in as a character. And so there's not a lot, but the stuff that it gives is so good. And I have actually, legitimately, I haven't fully rewatched the series. I plan on doing that. But I've been just rewatching only the episodes that he's in and just skipping to the parts that he's in. And that's almost been like a habit now. I don't know what is it? A ritual, I guess. Now, at the end of every day, I sit down and I rewatch the same scenes over and over and over
Sounds like the
because
beginning of a cult.
he's taken up so much of my goddamn head. And of course, I found fan fictions that are exploring the aspects of him that I wish would have gotten explored in the series but didn't get to. And I have fan fiction that I have like 2,500 words planned of a fan fiction I want to write exploring something that didn't get a chance to get explored in the series. And it has taken up so much of my head than I thought it would. It came out of nowhere and has me in a chokehold. I don't know why.
In my mind, I can already like what I find funny is that with how much you're like hyping up this fixation on this character, I'm thinking like if I were to see this character, I would be like, interesting. Why all the hype over again?
You want me to send a picture?
Sure, send a picture. Because I feel like it's not going to be nearly as monumental as you have built it up to be.
No, it's not. It's not at all. To you, it's not at all. But he's so precious to me.
Okay.
Whereas specifically, God. There. That's I think a good representation of his character.
Well, looks like a twink.
I mean, listen, we could do a pod episode at this point with me just analyzing this character. I love him so much, and I have so many thoughts.
Well, at least you have an actual obsession, even if it's a scary one.
It is an obsession. It's intense. I've been like literally because I've been having just the urge to watch these one scenes over and over and over again. I'm like, why? This has never happened to me before.
She's having urges, a lot of urges. One might say dark urges.
I mean,
But,
listen,
you know,
he's a very good character for that too. He's already very troubled.
Well,
that's just canon at that point.
It's just, it also kind of looks like a fuckboy haircut. So, you know, you have very interesting types.
Well, listen, that's not what his hair, well, that's not totally what his hair always looks like, because it's when he's genuinely in distress. So.
Okay. There's layers.
I love him dearly. There is! His hair actually plays quite a big part! Anyways.
Well,
I have thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts.
Maybe on your episode. Maybe that's when we'll get into that. Okay. I would say, first things first, didn't have many new songs, but that's because I was listening to a lot of old songs this past couple of weeks. I got like seven.
To a lot of perfume.
Well, I got
yourself in the mode.
7 new songs. It's not just to get myself in the mode. There's a lot of different reasons. The main new song that I feel like I listened to a lot was a song called "Kiss My Ass" by Game Boy, and it's just a fun song. But then like in terms of just other music that I was listening to, I was exclusively listening to / re-listening to all of the Perfume albums. And there's reasoning behind it, which I can get into briefly. But before that, my actual like weekly obsession thing that I've been doing for the past like week and a half is, and Sarah already knows this, is I've been playing Pokemon Legends Arceus. And let me tell you, the amount of times that I have been surprised that I wasn't completely knocked out when I killed all of my Pokemon, but then I had to revive them. because I have this complex in my mind that says even if all of my Pokemon died, it's because I just played it wrong, even if it's very clear that they are very underleveled for whatever I'm
Yeah.
taking on. And that did work out for me in one situation. Like there was a recent battle I did that I wasn't aware they were going to send out 3 Pokemon with very different typings, all to fight my one Pokemon at the same time. And I was like, I think I can do this, even though all of these Pokemon are ones I'm trying to level up right now. I just need to be smart about it.
Was it the Savi fight?
I think so. The one in the Snow Point.
Yeah, the Electivire, Rhyperior, and Magmortar. Yeah.
And you know, I did end up winning after the 3rd time because I had probably like 4 Pokemon that were very underleveled for it. But if I did it properly, I could do it, and I did do it. But another thing that this game has made me realize a lot is, technically speaking, like I think every Pokemon game is very completionist forward in and of itself, or at least friendly, because obviously you don't have to necessarily complete a Pokédex to complete a game in these situations. But with this game, I feel like it's almost very catered towards those completionists, just because of how crazy the entire story / game works. And I don't know, I could see this very much getting stuck in people's heads if they want to like complete everything. I'm okay with just completing the Pokédex normally, but it means that obviously if you want to, you kind of have to grind certain things in order to fully complete entries, which is fine, but it's just crazy. For like going out to basically just have a Pokemon use a move like 20 times against a bunch of helpless Starlies and Bidoofs, because you know it's easier to do that than to die against higher level ones. And I did in fact catch a alpha Bidoof that I called Crispy Jr. Because the original Crispy turned into a Bibarrel because I needed to do the Pokédex for that, but that's okay. Because now I have a Crispy Jr. that's bigger than the original Crispy. And eventually I'll probably get a Mick Crispy at some point, and it'll be like an even bigger Bibarrel. But so far, that's been my main thing that I've been playing a lot of. And it's been fun, and it makes me excited for the new game, but also dread the new game because I'm in the conflicted house of it's a new game that costs a lot, that ultimately... Would I want it? Yes. Am I happy with the situation around it? No. Would I ever be happy with the situation around it? It depends. But, you know, that's just how it is if you like any kind of Nintendo related franchise at this point, unless you're a Nintendo fanboy, to which you will buy everything. And I'm like, I don't know how people afford that, but especially with how the prices have rose. But anyways,
we want to tell briefly about our adventure.
Right. Our horrible adventure yesterday, where we went to a GameStop to try and participate in the physical advertised event for shiny Pokemon, specifically shiny legendaries. And we got to the GameStop, and this, keep in mind, this is a day after this event started. And we get to the GameStop. I ask, are you guys doing this event? Do you have any of the codes? And they say no. And then they're like, we got like 50 codes, of which like 90 people lined up yesterday, day of, before we opened. And ain't nobody got time for that. At least ain't nobody that has a normal job got time for that. So now Sarah has to go through her illegal Hide means of getting these Pokemon.
They aren't technically illegal.
That's what Hide says. And you know Hide's ways are actually illegal.
I'm looking at the dice your mom gave me yesterday, and I'm like, I'm just realizing how weird they are.
Eclectic. Woogie woogie woogie.
It has 3...
That kind of sounds like Snowbird.
5 sides. What?
Woogie woogie woogie. You know how the cry of Snowbird sounds. That's what it sounds like.
Hold on, I gotta look at what he sounds like now.
Honestly, I don't know if this would be something we could turn an entire pod episode into, but if we could just play a guessing game of where we imitate what a Pokemon cry sounds like, and we have to guess it.
Yeah, honestly, I'm down for that.
Because there's so many stupid ones. It sounds like that. I don't even know why it sounds like that.
Oh my god, it does.
But yeah, so let's just put it on the back burner. Another idea. I'm sure we could combine it into a Pokemon episode or something. But anyways,
imitating and guessing.
So the real reason that we're here deems curtain time. So I'm putting the curtain up. I know it was sudden. I couldn't do a reverse animation, so you just have to deal with the fact that it's just there.
Boom, curtain.
Ooh, oh no. The problem now is, oh wait, no, it's fine. Okay, we're fine. Everything's fine. I'm now editing how everything is going. I'm making it more interesting. I'm making it more interesting. You're so large. You must be drinking a lot of milk.
I did buy some chocolate milk from my
Chocolate milk doesn't count.
Why not?
Okay. And
You good?
and ta-da! There, I made it work. So now you may be wondering why. Go on, wonder why.
Why?
There we go. So the main reason that I wanted to do this episode in the first place, well, other than just the main reason of I could talk about this group for a very long time, is that I thought it was poignant now because Perfume has announced that they are basically going on permanent hiatus starting in 2026.
Oh no.
They're not disbanding. And I say permanent, it's more like indefinite. It's that kind where they say it as in we could come back, but you don't necessarily bank on them coming back. And granted, because of how their career has been, I don't blame them for going on this hiatus, or even staying together is surprising to me. But because they've been together for a very long time, and they have been doing things for a very long time. Now, they announced, I'm pretty sure they announced what they call cold sleep. That is what they are calling it. They're calling it their cold sleep this past Sunday. And then they had their last main concert this past Wednesday, which is basically considered like their last concert until whenever, if ever. Because they're going on the indefinite cold sleep starting 2026. So they might do a couple of shows and stuff before the end of the year, but other than that, it's not like a concert. So they're going, or at least disappearing / going into hibernation. Because I did, in fact, watch their last concert semi-illegally through uploaded live streams. Because it is very hard to get things from Japan specific groups without having to jump through hoops. And I'm lucky that this group is very popular in Japan, that a lot of people record things and a lot of people post those things. And so I have my sources, much like you have yours, for finding perfume things that have happened. And so I know, like, if something happens, I can go there. But ultimately, the main thing I want to cover in this is who are Perfume? What are they? What have they done? Where are they going? And how horrible are some of their songs and how good are some of their songs? Which is even better because Sarah has, I don't think, ever heard a Perfume song that she can recall. I more than likely showed her Perfume songs.
I've definitely heard them.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I've definitely heard them.
Forced you to watch things. That doesn't mean that you would remember them or associate them.
There was a point where I was listening to them on my own accord. Again, I can't remember any of them, but I know I listened to some.
Well, I would say this might jog your memory. It won't, but
it won't.
I say the main place that we should start. Do you like my meme spread?
I always love the meme spread.
I would explain what any of it means, but some of it doesn't even need explanation. So, first things first. We're gonna start with Kashiyuka burning the house down. Now, the basics of Perfume are, and don't look at the left side yet. The basics of Perfume is that they are a 3-member J-pop girl group. And I say J-pop loosely just because they're from Japan and they're a group that is in the popular sphere because they have a lot of fans. But in reality, they don't make like solely pop music. It's kind of complicated. But they're a Japanese girl group. They have 3 members. Those 3 members are Kashino Yuka, Omoto Ayano, and Nishiwaki Ayaka. Or Kashiyuka, Nochi, and Acha. That's the easiest way to remember them. Or the other easiest way to remember them is Kashiyuka has really long hair and a very blunt bang. Nochi always has short hair. And Achan typically has a ponytail, but if you can't spot her, she's the one that doesn't have super long hair and doesn't have super short hair. Because sometimes, typically in live performances is when she normally has the ponytail nowadays. Because I've noticed now a lot more than often she has her hair down, except for in performances. But regardless, so
Discord is struggling with you.
I know.
Discord wants to silence you.
Discord hates me. I know. That's okay. But from here, we are going to basically say that these 3 are in their 30s. In fact, they're in their mid to beginning late 30s, as they're born in the later 80s. Think about that. Are you thinking?
I'm thinking.
She's thought. So, and this is a recent picture, and all of these girls are like almost 40, essentially. Now, if you would like a quick other thing to potentially have a fun fact about each member, Kashiyuka, the long hair girl, she likes specifically going and watching artisanal craftsmen at their jobs. Don't ask questions. The middle girl, Nochi, she likes playing video games and likes talking with developers about said video games in those events. And Achan does Pilates. And also has publicly spoken about how she likes One Piece. So maybe you'll like her too.
Oh.
Now, this was just a random collage I made because I found a lot of photos of them with red. Now, if you'd like explanations for any of these things, I'm not going to give it to you.
Well,
but they sure do have crab hams. Now,
they sure do.
Moving on specifically from the brief introduction, I will go towards I'll go towards the formation of them, and then we'll go into what makes them them. So, technically speaking, Perfume as a group was formed in 1999. But in reality, they kind of like officially started in the year 2000. Because that's when they consider like their soft debut as Perfume, and then their major debut was later on from there. But it about started in the 2000 era, They are all specifically from Hiroshima. And they went to this place called the Actor School of Hiroshima. And the best I can explain what the Actor School is believe it or not just actors. It's basically, I guess, not idols, but like public entertainment. It was kind of like a school for just public entertainers in general. And they went to it under the guise of like they wanted to be in that idol centric zone where they were dancing, they were singing, all that kind of stuff. And so originally, technically speaking, they used to have someone else as a member instead of short-haired Nochi. They had a different girl named Kawayuka who was in when they formed the group Perfume, but then she left a year after and they debuted, quote unquote, as Perfume with Nochi instead because Kawayuka went on to study stuff. And she ended up, I think, briefly going into a different idol group, and now she works as a news reporter. So, very different form, very different path. The original meaning of their name was because all three of them, with Kawayuka specifically, not with Nochi, shared the kanji for ka/fragrance in their name, and so they made that into Perfume. But then later they're just like, well, no, she doesn't have it because her last name is Omoto. So it's just Perfume because it leaves a nice scent and it makes you feel good. Their music specifically. But when they officially started Perfume, because, you know, they were born in the late 80s, in 2000, they were 10 and 11. 10, 11, 12, in that range. So that is when they started as Perfume. Now, they also, in the beginning, had their name spelled out in the hiragana. So it's the Perfume. But later on, when they went into Tokyo, which will be covered on the timeline, they ended up changing their name to the English version of it, so that they could reach a quote-unquote more international audience. Which is funny, considering they never cater to that audience. So, their career lasted, I say lasted, this is so sad. Their career lasted, /last, because technically they never die, from 2000 to 2025. This is their mainstay of like their career. They've done over 379 estimated concerts, because I found some listings of tours and stuff. Over 38 music videos, 33 physical singles, 9 studio albums, 3 compilation albums, and 1 random EP that I don't know why they specifically released it under separate guise. And they've had notable performances at the Cannes Lions International Festival of Creativity in France. Big mouthful. South by Southwest, they performed at Coachella. They did Tokyo Dome multiple times. I believe it was 4. It might have been more, but I think 4 was the number that I remember. And they've had 4 world tours that span all across different different countries in Asia, Europe, and North America. Although only briefly in North America. So you'll always get people complaining, but mainly Europeans and North Americans complaining that they never came over here that much. And it's true, they mainly did either Asian tours, or more specifically, they toured a lot in Japan because that's where their fan base was like strongest and everything. Which is sad for international fans, but it is what it is. And some lovely subplots that have happened in the past and or recently is Kashuyuka's 15-year revenge. I'll explain this later, but Kashuyuka's 15-year revenge, okay. We don't talk about Love Fool. The ghost of Kawayuka coming to tear that ass up, and when you side quest into Cars 2. Again, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I do remember the Cars 2 thing, oddly enough. Because I think at some point, for whatever reason, I was listening to movie soundtracks, and then I saw Perfume, and I'm like, what in the world? Why are you here?
So, let's get into what makes Perfume Perfume. See, look, I did a thing. So, we're going to start on the left side with God is watching us. And then we have this other Asian man. You might be wondering,
is that God?
Who is this man? Is that God? You'd be kind of correct. So, starting here, technically speaking, I would say one of the fundamental points that makes Perfume who they are, like identity wise, is the kind of music they produce. Well, I say they produce. They don't produce it. This Asian man, this Japanese man right here, his name is Yasutaka Nakata. You can just call him Nakata. I don't care. He is the main producer of Perfume and has been probably since, I believe, like 2003, 2004, somewhere in that range, which is way near the beginning of their career. He basically started producing them when they initially moved over to not Japan. They were already in Japan when they moved over to Tokyo for the major label of like under Beehive, blah, blah, blah. He's been their producer for the longest time. He is part of the reason why they sound the way that they sound, because he literally is the reason they sound that the way that they do. He's notable for the fact that he kind of has his grubby little fingers in a lot of different acts, and also has done a lot of different soundtracks just in general. Like, I could probably go in depth into an entire different episode about how he's kind of influenced not only the music scene, but specifically the electronic music scene globally, because a lot of people kind of cite him as like reference. But all you need to know, he's very well known. He is mostly well known for producing both Carry Pamu Pamu as well as his own side project, duo group of Capsule. And their music is essentially like Perfume's music, but like kicked up to 15 on the EDM banger score. And Carrie's music sounds nothing like either of them, which is funny because I feel like the only reason it's like that is because if her music style changed, people would riot. But because it's produced by him, and they basically gone their entire career mostly with him as the producer, their style slash sound has changed and evolved as he's changed and evolved what he wanted to make at the time. So the main reason why their albums and their singles start to change like over the years is because he ended up like starting to do it in a different way because he liked it, and it reflects a lot in Capsule's music. They typically have a lot of parallels that they share. And I detest this man as of the recent years because I don't like the direction that he started to go. But it is what it is. He still has done a lot for Perfume as a group, so I will give him that, but I will still be mad at him. Now, the other things that make a Perfume is going to be a 3-for-1, I'm pretty sure. Yes, so we're going to go here first. So the other main thing I would say is the technology surrounding like their performances and everything. Perfume, ever since probably their major debut in Tokyo with Linear Motor Girl, they've been kind of associated with high-tech futuristic as their aesthetic. And that's changed over the years and everything, but even then they're known for their usage of technology in a lot of their performances as well as in their actual sound itself, because their sound is very electronic, like techno pop, electro pop, EDM, that style. They use a lot of different vocoders and auto-tune on their vocals to like put it together and like merge their voices and have like synthetic harmonies going over it. So typically it goes well with like the entire aesthetic of all these kinds of different performances, where they use things like volumetric level tracking, they do real-time projection mapping, and one of the main things that they specifically are with is like this team essentially called Rhizomatics, where it's this high-tech team that's worked like on the Tokyo Olympics before, and they basically use Perfume as kind of guinea pig testers for new technology that they're working on. So a lot of the times when you see them using new stuff or like doing a bunch of things within a rapid succession of their performances, it's because Rhizomatics is like, well, we can use you and you'll use all this stuff. So they've done all kinds of different performances, and within a lot of their concerts and everything, that's kind of like what they're known for to some extent. They're known for like how crazy their concerts are, and they're kind of meant to be a performative group. Like that's one of the main things that they're known for. And with performance, we'll go to fashion later. With performance comes choreography. Now, don't pay attention to this over here. Now, this woman right here, her name is Mikiko. She has been with them literally since the beginning of their inception, because way back when they started in the early, and by the early I mean the 2000 year, when they started in the year 2000, she was working at the actor school of Hiroshima. And she was, I think, in her 20s at the time. And obviously they were like in 5th grade. And she was working with them to choreograph their stuff back then. And she's worked with them ever since, choreographing almost all of, well, no, all of their stuff. But I say that in the sense of, I don't believe everything has choreography, but that's the other thing. With the choreography comes the fact that basically any song that you will ever see them perform has a designated choreography to it that is different from every other song. Which you might be wondering, wow, that's a lot. And it is a lot. And one of the things that I always thought was kind of hilarious is they've talked about like how they do their entire learning of choreography. And they're like, we don't like practicing that much. We practice it the one time and then we just stop, because the more we practice it, the less it looks good together as 3 people. And so in their mind, basically, if they all know the same choreography from that one time, they're less likely to put their own spin on it and look less in sync. Because that is one of the main reasons why they're praised for their performance, like live performances, is all of their choreography is very precise, particular, and like I had mentioned, kind of with the theming, almost robotic in certain choreography and everything, especially with their early years, because they really heavily laid into that theme like way back in the day. But Mikiko, I'm not trying to downplay her. She specifically has an entire dance troupe called 11 Play, all female dance troupe that has worked with Perfume on previous performances as well. And she's choreographed for other well-known acts like Baby Metal. You don't know who they are, but
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Basically, it's a J-pop, J-rock fusion with heavy metal. That's all you need to know. It's like if you heard a heavy metal song, but with, you know, like that's the best I can describe it.
Okay.
But regardless, she's basically one of the backbone, because she's basically been their teacher since day one. So she'll like show up to all of their shows, all that kind of stuff. But she is the main reason why they look the way they look when they're actually performing the songs and everything. But then another factor that goes into why they are the way that they are, as you might be able to tell by a lot of the different things all over, is their fashion. Now, they are known for their either really cool or, in my opinion, sometimes extremely ugly outfits.
Well,
because early on, well, their fashion kind of also goes into their own individual identity. So remember how, like I said, there's long hair, short hair, and then medium to ponytail length, essentially. One of the key tropes that each of the members has, and that has had it basically since the beginning, is Achan, the girl that typically has the ponytail. She normally, I'll use this as an example. I mean, I can use this. She normally has longer dresses that typically go to around her knees. And back in the early days, they went past her knees. She looked like a midwife. And I don't know why they decided they basically gave her no silhouette. It was like a straight up and down bag that they draped over her. And they thought that was a good idea. I decided not to put any of those on here because I didn't want to do my girl dirty like that. But she's known for the longer dresses, typically with like some kind of shoulder pad accessory. But she's had like sleeveless moments. They've all had their own like intricacies with their outfits. The girl with the long hair, Kashyuka, typically has the shorter dresses, sometimes the sleeveless situation. It's basically what Achan's wearing, but if it was slightly sexier. That's the vibe that she gives. And then Nochi has always been the tomboy situation. She's always basically wearing shorts of some situation. You might be wondering, but that looks like a dress in that photo. you would be surprised. A lot of the times they disguise it as a dress, but it's pants. And they make it seem like it's a dress. But they like putting her in things that actually have leg holes. That's the best way to describe it. And because of that, it can look like the shortest thing, or they like to accentuate the fact that she's wearing shorts by making like a different accoutrement really, really long. And so you'll have random moments, like for instance, in the Polygon Wave thing, where she's in shorts, but she has this long wireframe cage around her that she's also dancing in. But you get my point. They have specific tropes along with them, and all of their outfits have a very distinct what the fuck is going on here. But some of them, I would say, look pretty cool. So, as you can tell, it's a thing. And I will also mention that it goes hand in hand with their choreography / performances at their live concerts, because more often than not, they will specifically have stage outfits that are similar to like play outfits, where it's an outfit that it's like a dress or something that they put on top of other dresses, and they will quick change in between songs. So they'll show up like 30 seconds later in a different outfit, and they'll do like 5 of these costume changes at a time, all for one concert. So that's crazy. But anyways, that's like one of the main things. And like briefly, because this says Perfume no Okite, which is just like the laws of perfume. One of the main things that, other than just their hair being the way that it is and their hair always being black, they've never changed its color of any kind, is they always perform in high heels, much to their detriment. But they always perform in high heels, and they always dance in high heels. And some of their songs choreography, I don't think they should be dancing in high heels, but they do. And that's just something that they've always said that they had to do. They've literally said it in interviews where it's one of their rules. And I feel bad for their feet, because they've been doing this for 25 years.
Yeah. I could.
But with that in mind, we can now go on to the big piece de resistance, me when I experience a challenge. Now, so this is just a brief timeline that I can go over. I say brief. You see the timeline. It's not very brief, but so basically, starting technically speaking in 2002 is when they officially released, at least, their first single. And this was back, these 2 songs, which is Omajinai Perori and Karashi Boshuchu, which means looking for a boyfriend. They released these basically through a company associated with the Actors School of Hiroshima. And from the beginning, they already had Mikiko already like choreographing their stuff, but they were, I believe, like 12 or 13 around the time of the first stuff, but they had already been releasing technically like covers and stuff at the school itself back in 2000. Like there's a cover of, I believe, a song called Super Jet Shoes. That's from like the year 1999/2000 of them performing it and singing on a stage with horrible like 90s camera quality from Japan. Now, from 2002 onward, after they've officially specifically released these in Hiroshima, they moved over to Beehive under Amuse. Now, you might be wondering, what does that mean? Or you might be thinking, if you're Sarah, B. So
No, believe it or not.
In 2003, they moved over to Tokyo because, technically speaking, they were joining this group, this like subunit of a agency which was Beehive under Amuse. Amuse was like this agency that had a bunch of different artists, and Beehive was basically another subsidiary collection of artists. And so under Beehive, they basically were living in dorms. They had the almost typical K-pop trainee lifestyle, if you would. And that's when they started releasing all of their indie singles, which this is considered their quote-unquote indie era. And with their first quote-unquote indie single, that's when they got in contact with Yasutaka Nakata, who produced Their first one called Sweet Donuts. That's what it's called. And from there onward, we have the lovely time where they decided to release Monochrome Effect and Vitamin Drop. Now, I don't care what you say, Vitamin Drop is my shit. it is a catchy song. It has one of, in my opinion, the best B-sides that they've ever come out with. However, I will say their indie era sounds like Japanese video game music, which could be up some people's alley. But because this was like early Yasutaka Nakata with them, and this was like how he produced it, it sounds like very old school electronic J-pop vibes. And they have like not nearly as processed vocals as they ended up getting closer to their major debut. Like Vitamin Drop, maybe. I think the closest they got was the B-side off of Vitamin Drop, which was called Inryoku, which I think means like attraction. And that's where they had like a lot of vocal chops and auto-tune. But up until this point, they were basically singing like with their natural voices through and through, and that's what was coming through on the actual songs themselves. So they kind of had that small town J-pop charm, you know, like that was the way they're going, because they were this is before they even thought about like anywhere outside of Japan. They didn't know anywhere outside of Japan existed. It was just trying to make it. And they performed like in bowling alleys, in Apple stores. They did like all kinds of different things, like typical Japanese idol culture. Hide knows what I'm talking about. And from about 2004 to 2005, this is when they decided, their company, Amuse, because technically speaking, Amuse had dropped like every other artist that was under Beehive, essentially, except for Perfume, because I guess they saw some kind of spark, which, you know, if they didn't, they wouldn't be where they are today. But they kept Perfume under Amuse, and they decided to keep them and actually give them a major label debut, because up until that point, not a lot of other groups from Beehive / any from Beehive had that. And so in 2005, how old were you when Perfume dropped their major debut?
2 years old.
And why weren't you streaming it? This was before Spotify, before iTunes. But basically, this is when they officially moved over to Tokuma Japan Communications, which was basically the other agency that was not in contact, but like in cahoots with Amuse, essentially. It was the distributor that let them drop this initial single. Hide, shut up, you're old. From here. This is what I think officially solidified them in the Japanese consensus of being a quote-unquote high-tech group, or like, well, I say high-tech, you see what this looks like. This album cover alone looks like it belongs in like old school Tron or something. So
I was gonna say, it's very Tron vibe.
Which is the vibe, but if you saw what the video looks like to this, it is ridiculous because it's from 2005. But this is when Nakata basically started experimenting more with like heavy auto-tune, really more so electronic than any of the previous stuff had been, because technically speaking, and I didn't get into this, but I can briefly talk about it now, all of their music probably in their indie era was a post Shibuya K music genre. And you might be wondering, what's Shibuya K? Are you wondering that?
I am.
Thank you, class. Well, I'll tell you. Shibuya K was basically a subgenre of music that popped up in Japan around like the 70s and 80s, essentially. Like that's when it was really popular. You know how like city pop, people think of city pop with Japan, like old school city pop, essentially. Shibuya K was basically the elevator version of city pop, but exclusive to Japan. Because it was often played in a bunch of the like retail stores on the Shibuya circuit, and it had a very specific style to it. It was like bleepy bloopy twinkle twinkle. And it had like some bossa nova vibes. Like it was very easygoing elevator listening music. And that mixed with like more digital sounding synthesizers and stuff is what this sounded like for a long time. But when they officially had their major debut with Linear Motor Girl, which I know these song titles sound crazy, but with Linear Motor Girl, they shifted less from the Shibuya K style and more into the full-on like electro pop synthesizer style. And I would say, honestly, anywhere from about their major debut onwards, kind of changing with the Japanese time of like music genres getting popular and stuff, any of this could be considered Vocaloid music if you just change them out for Vocaloids. Because it has that specific style, but it was before Vocaloids were even really popular and all that stuff, or even existed, because Hatsune Miku came out way later, and technically like Michael came out later, but that's a different thing. We can talk about Vocaloids another podcast. But from their major debut, and this was when they were already in Tokyo, they went on to Computer City, which was in 2006, which was the next year. And then they went into Electro World. Now, from Electro World, they decided to release a complete best album. And a complete best album in this situation is like a compilation album where they basically put together a bunch of their previous title tracks and everything and any B-sides that were on it. And early fans of Perfume were scared that because they were releasing a complete best album without like super making it in the market as of yet, that essentially they were going to disband soon. Because that's typically what a lot of early J-pop groups did. They would make like a complete best and then they would say peace and disappear. And so people were scared about that. But what they instead did was they released, after doing a brief performance, like a live show where they were releasing a new single, and they did a digital single called Twinkle Snow Powdery Snow. And then they released a song called Chocolate Disco off of the Fan Service Sweet single. And they had Fan Service Bitter, but this was Fan Service Sweet. And they debuted it in 2007 on Valentine's Day. Now, you may be wondering, why does this have extra text? Let me tell you, it has extra text because it was played on Kimura Kaela's radio show. You might be wondering, who's that bitch? She was a well-known model, actress, and musical artist at the time who had a radio show, essentially, where she basically just played the songs that she was obsessed with at the time. And because obviously this was in the early 2000s. What?
I said honestly fair, queen behavior.
I mean, and because this was the early 2000s, everyone was listening to the radio. They weren't like going on YouTube or streaming anything. She found the song Chocolate Disco off of Perfume's Fan Service Suite single, and she was playing it like constantly because she really, really liked the song. And because of that, they ended up getting a lot of traction because more people were starting to hear about them from this show. And this was when the PTA was formed, when they started getting more fans. You might be wondering, what is the PTA? The PTA is Perfume's official fan club. I believe it stands for, well, let me double check because I don't want to sound stupid.
I love how you say that as if anyone here can fact check you properly.
I'm fact checking myself because I think I know what it means. Okay, I was right. Basically, it stands for Perfume to Anata, which basically just means perfume and you. That's what I was gonna say, but I didn't want to say it wrong. And basically, this was the first formation of the fan club, so like this marks their anniversary, blah blah blah. So, after Chocolate Disco was played
beautiful, dear God,
on the radio show and got really, really popular, it still wasn't like crazy popular, but they were getting a lot more traction. A lot more people were like coming to concerts and stuff that they were holding. The one of, I don't know if it was the CEO or if it was just one of the higher ups, but one of the higher ups from NHK, which is like a global broadcasting company in Japan for like TV stuff, saw the Chocolate Disco song going crazy, and he was like, I like that. And he contacted Perfume and their talent agency and was like, we're having a recycling campaign coming up soon. Can you get them? This is literally how their origins of becoming popular are. Can you get them to make a song? By them, I mean, Yasutaka Nakata and them to sing on it for this campaign. And the campaign's crazy because it's like trash bins dancing and stuff, but in it, them performing in the middle of it. I'll show it to you afterwards. But this was basically their claim to fame because they came out, technically speaking, this comes a bit before because the ad that the NHK released for the recycling came out before the official single was released for it, but it was a song called Polyrhythm. And I think you would get so annoyed by it because there's a point in it where they're because in the song itself, because Yasutaka Nakata does music, in the actual song they have a polyrhythm that plays with them singing lyrics, but obviously in the polyrhythm so that it goes over it multiple times, but they sing it multiple times over and over again, and then they say poly loop instead of polyrhythm. You would just get very annoyed. I'll definitely keep it in mind for torturing you in the future. But
thanks.
They performed it for this commercial, which was the ad campaign. And because it was on TV versus on the radio, and a lot more people were watching the TV too, and basically everyone in Japan tunes into NHK. It's like the PBS essentially of Japan. They got a lot of media attention from this. And they ended up releasing Polyrhythm as a single back in 2007. And I'm pretty sure it sold like over 50, somewhere like 1,000 copies essentially. And so from there, they're like, oh, we're going places. And from there, they released the song Electro World. No, was it Electro World? Was it Electro World or was it? I know Macaroni was on there. You tell me. You know this. I'm pretty sure they went from Polyrhythm to... No, I know. It was Baby Cruising Love. We already did Electro World. So they released a song called Baby Cruising Love with a half... It was like 2 shared A-sides. One of them was called Macaroni. And Macaroni's a slow song. Macaroni's a slow song. But this did just as well as Polyrhythm had did. So they were like, okay, so people are sticking around. And because of that, they ended up releasing their first studio album, Game, in 2008. Where were you when Game debuted?
I was 7.
Good answer.
7. Hold on.
You were 7.
I don't know my own age. I was not 7. I was 5.
Wow. How do you forget that?
I forgot how math worked for a second.
Okay.
I don't want to talk about it.
Well, anyways, they debuted their first studio album, full length, Game. It had a bunch of the previous single songs from like about Chocolate Disco onwards, because they had like multiple different songs and different things, and a bunch of album specific songs. They've always been pretty good at doing about an even distribution of singles to like actual original album songs. So I would say it's about 50-50, if not like 50. No, that's not how it works. 40-75. No, that's not how it works either. 40-70. I can't math. You don't know age, I can't math. But very successful. It was one of their highest selling albums just in general. I think later on they beat it, but basically from there, they're basically riding a wave of like major popularity. And I would say this is when they were like at their core, the most hardcore electro poppy, techno poppy sound that they've ever sounded like in this album. Because it consisted of not only the previous singles that already had that vibe to them, but then all of the album songs themselves had that kind of vibe to them. And they basically, it was surprising because it was like one of the #1 albums on the Oricon charts that was in the techno pop region, which had only been held by like one other group previous to them ever. And it was like back in the early 90s. And so because they weren't considered like normal mainstream J-pop or like J-rock, because that's really popular in Japan too, people were like, that's interesting that they charted that high, but everyone was clearly listening to them. So then, moving on from their album in April of 2008, they moved on to release a single, Love the World. And this is probably, I would say, their second most well-known song. Well, I don't know. I would tie like Polyrhythm and Chocolate Disco maybe, but then Love the World's definitely at least third, if not second, if we're tying them. Because this is the one that a lot of people know from them. It's a very quintessential Perfume song. It's the first ever technopop song to reach #1 on the Oricon charts, which is essentially just like their Billboard. And it was there, I think, for a couple of weeks, honestly. And because of this, they're like, oh, we're something now. And they released Dream Fighter / Negai. And Dream Fighter is kind of known as like their don't go and die song. You can stand firm with us because you're a dream fighter. And moving on from that, they went to One Room Disco. I have a love-hate relationship with this single / song because I don't understand why everybody loves it so much. It's not my favorite. And also these outfits are ugly as sin. But also, if you can tell, you might not be able to tell, but if you, well, you can't really tell at all actually, but at least in the game, in this pixely album cover, you see what I mean when I say the distinct style of dress that they would wear.
Yeah.
And this outfit of Achan's is made up of like a bunch of paper fans. So,
well,
moving on from their lovely One Room Disco situation, which the video itself is pretty cute for. All of their videos really good. But they released an album called Triangle. It wasn't actually called Triangle.
I recognize that album cover.
Well, that is interesting. I don't know why you'd be listening to that. Maybe it's because Love the World was off of it, and that's a popular one. But the thing is, it wasn't actually called Triangle. It was literally the shape triangle. That was what it was called. It was a nightmare to search because you could not find it anywhere. Like, no one could just type a triangle into their keyboard, even in Japan. But they basically released this, and for some reason, I don't understand why, but a lot of the songs off of this album are like flight themed. Like, they have multiple different songs about like speed of sound or like taking off, or an entire song called Night Flight where they're basically just saying get on a night flight. So like, I don't know why, but triangle to them means you're on an airplane. I always describe it as like, this album to me, like listening through it fully, sounds like Ooh La La Space Channel 5 intergalactic airport music. That's the vibe it gives, because it has like that futuristic, weird retro future sound to it while also being a bit techno pop. For some reason, I'm pretty sure on like Wikipedia, they say some of the inspirations of this album were R&B. Bitch, where? The only song I can think of that has R&B is Kiss and Music, which is like one of their only slut songs. And like, they have 2 slut songs, both of which they released when they were the youngest. And one of them's called Take Me, and one of them's called Kiss and Music. So I don't understand it, but Triangle also sold extremely well. They're on a roll. So, moving on from Triangle, in 2009, they released Fushizen the Girl / Natura ni Koishite. It's a lot, but they have moderate to like extreme success, specifically with the Natural song, because it was also in tandem with a fashion brand. They do a lot of ads. They make that coin though. And moving on from this, we have Voice / I don't remember what the B-side was off of Voice. I know what the B-side off of Ne was, but I don't remember the B-side off of Voice. I want to say, oh no, 575. You want to talk about B-sides that are forgotten? Let's talk about 575, one of the only songs where Perfume raps. Guess who's jealous? Guess who's jealous of Beyonce? Perfume rapping. Now, the way that it works is that Voice in and of itself is a very specific song that will get stuck in your head because you're like, why are they telling me to lose the voice? But then 575 comes in and they're rapping about haikus on cell phones. And you wonder how you got there.
I mean,
but at the same time, people praise 575 because the way that the lyrics are written is in haiku. They write it in haiku to be for each member is singing / rapping in that form. And to be fair, haikus are also different in Japanese versus when you do it in English, so it's very complicated. But regardless, from there we go to ne, which means hey. And one of the quintessential party songs that is a B-side that has been forgotten about forever. Fake It. Because you want to wake up in the morning, you play Fake It, and you're blasted and you can't hear for the rest of the day. Hey, Fake It just came on. Oh my gosh, it was Destiny. So basically, this is when they started, I would say, transitioning from Triangle era into their next album era. This is when they really started to get into a very specific kind of song style, which I'll cover on the JPN once we get there. But from Ne, we go to Katsukana Kawari and Laser Beam, which I would say Laser Beam is one of their more popular videos that people know them from because it involves a polar bear and a man that's masked that has a suitcase and them shooting laser beams out of their fingers. You get the gist. And from Laser Beam, we go to Spice / Glitter. Spice, my beloved. I love Spice, this song. Not the Vocaloid song. I don't need to talk about Len having sex. But Spice, the Perfume song, great. Can sing all of the words in Japanese. Amazing. Now, from this onward, they released their third technically studio album, but fourth like overall album for counting a compilation. JPN. Now, this album, I like to describe, if the previous one was like Intergalactic Airport, JPN's music style, consisting of their previous singles as well as new songs, is kind of like what I imagine a modern Studio Ghibli soundtrack would sound like. And by modern, I mean like more electronic sounding and certain things, but also having kind of like music boxy sections. It's very odd, but it sounds like fantastical with a kind of techno pop flair to it, and that's the main reason why I think it fits in like the modern Studio Ghibli vibe. And again, critical acclaim, very good, everyone loves it. In fact, I'm pretty sure most Perfume fans typically agree that JPN is like their favorite, and they consider it like a golden age of Perfume music because all of these singles up until this point were like really big hits. However, moving on from JPN era, we go into Spring of Life, and this is the beginning of their new album era. So from JPN into Spring of Life, we see a very clear, almost disjoint in terms of they now start to sound a lot more like polished and less fantastical, if that makes sense. And so in Spring of Life, it's like a club banger. We love it. And then once they move on to Spending All My Time, which has a majority of the lyrics in English, and it's the same things repeating over and over again. If you thought polyrhythm was annoying, you would hate this. They just say spending all my time over and over again.
I remember this song. I remember this song specifically because you like this song a lot, and I listened to it a decent amount, believe it or not.
Well, then maybe it did get to you. Maybe you liked it enough because there was enough difference to it. But between Spending All My Time and the next single that they released, they came out with a global compilation because this is when they started going more global with their outreach, specifically the Amuse Entertainment and everything that they were under. Because in this time frame, believe it or not, is when they had their song Polyrhythm in the Cars 2 movie. Because I don't know if you recall Cars 2, but they go to different countries, and one of the countries they go to is Japan. And in the background of the Japan scenes and everything, they're playing Polyrhythm. And I'm pretty sure at one point they also showed car versions of Perfume. I might be hallucinating that. But regardless, that was like the first time they actually went over to the US. And because that point onward, I would say it's around in this point of time, they released Spending All My Time, which was a majority English song that they were marketing more towards a English speaking audience, as well as the Perfume global compilation Love the World, which was geared towards showing a bunch of the global audience like previous songs that they might have missed, because up until this point they had majority just been promoting stuff in Japan. Now, for some reason, they decided to put one of the best songs on one of the worst singles that they have ever done, in my personal opinion. You want to talk about Studio Ghibli music / cartoon music? This is Mirai no Museum. It was a collaboration song / added song for the Doraemon cartoon, which I don't even know if you know what that is.
Mm-mm.
But it's a Japanese cartoon made for kids, and so the song sounds like a Studio Ghibli kids song, which ain't nothing wrong with it, but comparative to literally everything else, even on the JPN album that they have ever released, it does not fit with them at all. And on this was a B-side, a singular B-side that I personally consider one of the most perfumiest Perfume songs ever, which we'll get to. So after that, they released Magic of Love with the B-side of Handyman in 2013. And right after Magic of Love, later on, in October, Halloween Music, they released their fourth studio album entitled Level 3. Now, you might be asking, what does Level 3 mean, and why is it the fourth album titled Level 3? To which I would say, I don't know. I think it's because there's 3 members. That's my best guess. But this album, I would describe, if we're doing all the previous albums description-wise, this is like if you were going to a really premier deluxe high-tech club, like dance club, that happened to have other rooms with different things in it. And so there's the main floor, which is the club floor, where they play EDM bangers. And then you have a fashion room where they're holding a runway. And then on another side, they have a magic show. And then in one random room off in a corner, they're watching a cartoon. But you're rotating around all these different rooms going through this album. And in my personal opinion, I would say probably this is my second favorite album of theirs overall, just because I think sonically it all fits together the most, minus this fucker, but everything else fits the album. So moving on, they then released Sweet Refrain with one of the most underrated B-sides of all time, in my humble opinion. And then they released Cling Cling, which was kind of an EP because they released 3 songs on it, but I don't know. It was the single. The random one where Perfume decided to pretend to be Chinese. Don't ask me questions. I don't have answers. And then about in the middle bit, this is when I would say I was initially introduced to Perfume. Because up until this point, I had mainly been listening. I listened to like off or not super popular J-pop acts / really popular-ish ones for the time, which like one of the main ones I was listening to was Kyari Pamyu Pamyu, which you might remember from earlier because she was also one of the produced artists under Yasutaka Nakata. And I remember distinctly during this period of time seeing one of their songs off of this album pop up in my recommended and immediately skipping, thinking, this isn't Kyari, my beloved. I can't listen to this. And I don't know what possessed me, but eventually I did end up listening to the one song that it kept recommending me. And the one song it was recommending me was the B-side off of the Mirai no Museum EP, well not EP, single, which was called Daijoubu Nai. And it is,
yes,
in my opinion, the most perfumiest Perfume song because it is so J-pop electronic with a bunch of vocal chops and it never quite stops. It just keeps going the entire time. And the minute I heard it, I was like, Wait, I was like Wendy Williams in that one gif where she's like, hold on a minute. And from that point onward, I decided to then go through their entire previous discography, saved basically everything. It was like, okay, I am now officially their fan. So from this point onward, I had been following their releases going forward. So everything beforehand, I knew about. Everything now, I know about. You feel me? So, in 2015, they released Pick Me Up. Technically speaking, they released it with, for some reason, promoting a song called Relax in the City, which I don't understand why that was the main song they were trying to promote off of this single, because it's boring as hell, in my opinion. I don't want to relax in the city. I want to pick me up. So, Pick Me Up, I would say Pick Me Up got a lot of traction overseas as like a really popular song at the time. And then from there, they went to Star Train, which at this point was their about 15th anniversary of Perfume. So it was kind of going back in their previous concerts, their previous music videos, and it was dedicated to their 15th major anniversary, essentially. Or technically 10-year major anniversary, because they debuted in 2005 with their major debut. Which makes it confusing, because I remember up until then I was like, what do you mean they had a major debut and a normal debut? What are you talking about? So, from here, they released their 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th studio album, Cosmic Explorer. I was around for this. I was around for like all of the branding that they were doing when they were releasing it. Because they had an Instagram account and everything that they were really advertising it on. And I don't know why, but for some reason in this specific album art and the album art they did for it, they are white women. And I don't know what happened, but they like turned the brightness all the way up to 100 and the contrast and the saturation all the way up to 100 for this. But regardless, Cosmic Explorer, it has a very special place in my heart, because I remember I have a DVD of this specific tour that they did. And you might be wondering, Cosmic Explorer, that sounds space themed. And you would be almost right. I would say the space theme lasts for about the first 2 songs, one of which is an intro. And the second one, self-titled Cosmic Explorer, which I would say sounds spacey. Everything else beyond that, they lost the plot. I don't know why they decided Cosmic Explorer was going to be it, or why this was the branding they did. They did better branding for it during their tours, because they actually like shot photos and stuff of them on spaceships, and they had like these Space Explorer uniforms, and that matched. This doesn't, for whatever it was. So we'll get to it, but we might not. We'll see. Moving on to 2017, after they released their Cosmic Explorer, went on some tours and stuff, which they did do an international tour for Cosmic Explorer where they hit a bunch of different places. And it was about this tour onwards that I specifically told my parents, because, you know, I was in high school at the time, / middle school. I was like, if they come around again, because I don't know when they're going to come around again for international tours, because they did it very sparingly, we have to see them at least once. And I made this promise with my parents, and they promised me, and they're like, okay, if they come around again on a tour, we will go see them at the closest place to us, which typically at their previous points was New York. So moving on from Tokyo Girl, which they initially made as like the drama theme track, I guess, for a drama situated in Tokyo surrounding a girl. I don't know. And it was popular. I personally have gotten very annoyed by it just because I feel like it's a very overrated song, but I can still listen to it. And then they had a toothpaste commercial B-side called Jewelry Rain. Little did you know that has to do with toothpaste, but I would say
Toothpaste jewelry commercial though, specifically.
Moving on from level 3 going into Cosmic Explorer, they kind of left the super polished and turned more into like a super Western sounding EDM style in the Cosmic Explorer range, I would say. And then going from Cosmic Explorer into their next album with these singles, they started sounding more and more almost like future bassy. And this kind of ties into what I said earlier, where Yasutaka Nakata, specifically whatever he was into at the time, he kind of did it with Perfume too. So in his own music and in Capsule's music, he went in this direction where it was like very future bass, drum and bass, that kind of style. And so it flooded into Perfume stuff. And after Tokyo Girl, they went into If You Wanna, which is specifically a future bass track. I personally like If You Wanna. However, I can understand why people wouldn't like it because it's like it makes no sense with a bunch of other things. And then the B-side off of If You Wanna is called Every Day, and it was a washing machine commercial. And so moving on from that, we go to Mugen Mirai, Infinite Future, where they specifically had a song used for a anime slash manga slash live action show based off of a card game that I think is called Chihaya Furu. I don't remember. I remember briefly thinking about it. They also had a song off of Cosmic Explorer called Flash that was based off of it. It was really popular because it was based off of that and it was used in advertisements with that. But I have this album I associate specifically with going to Chicago because they dropped it back when Yoshi went to Chicago for a concert and I went with her, and this was all I was listening to on the plane. And from there, they then came out with their sixth album, Future Pop. Literally called Future Pop. Now, I don't know what this album cover has to do with Future Pop. Neither did the people there, honestly. But it happened. And like I said, it had a very modern future bass kind of sheen to it in all of the songs, because there's not nearly as many singles. As you might have noticed, there's less and less singles as they go on between hand. And so it was mainly just album songs that people were waiting for. And I personally, I would say Future Pop is underneath Cosmic Explorer for me, but I still like it overall because it has some really good songs on it. But I don't understand the theme of it at all. And then in between, when Future Pop came out, and when they came out with technically multiple different things, this is when they went on a Future Pop global tour. And because of that promise my parents had made to me, we went to New York in March, technically speaking, for my birthday. And it was the 30th. We went to the Hammerstein Ballroom. This was the picture I took on the day. You can see Hide and Rose there. And these were some pictures from the actual concert when we went. They performed some songs that they had never performed in a long time there, like Butterfly, which was off of like their Game album. So it was a fun time. I'm really glad I got to at least see them once before they went on indefinite hiatus. Even if it was for Future Pop, which wasn't my favorite album, I'm still glad I got to see them perform because they always typically do some old songs whenever they do concerts, even if it's for new tours and stuff. Because they have so many songs. And then between, I believe, yeah, so from 2019, this was like the in-between bit, but they released, technically, later that year, another compilation album called Perfume the Best P Cubed. Now they had 3 different versions of this album. They had a regular version, and it's basically, it had 3 discs that spanned across the entirety of the songs, even all the way back to Sweet Donuts. They didn't go all the way to the before Hiroshima days, but they went all the way to Sweet Donuts. And there's 3 CDs full of different songs off of these. And they had the basic version, they had this version, which had like some DVD extra stuff. And then they had the Ultra First Press Limited Edition version, which was a cube, because P cubed. And it had a giant ass thick photo book that came along with the 3 CDs and DVD. Can you guess which version I bought?
The one with the most things in it.
Yes, because I had money. And so I decided this is my time. And plus, I thought, because technically speaking, like you had already seen, I had only been technically an official fan of theirs since here. And I didn't like own all of these different albums. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, well, this is the time to buy a complete best album off of them because I love all their music. Well, asterisk. I don't love all their music. Marino Museum, you can die in hell. But from then onwards, they then released a single called Time Warp. And this, I like to call this the beginning of the fall because
Oh no.
this is about when I started having doubts. My faith in them started wavering, if you will. Because while I do think Time Warp is a good song, objectively, I think it is a very fun song. I think you can have a lot of fun to it. However, it sounds like a retro future 80s song, which isn't a bad thing necessarily. However, I knew that I was worried that this was heralding things to come. Because, like I said, Yasutaka Nakata liked changing his stuff, and his stuff had started shifting towards that retro future synth poppy kind of vibe. And I was like, oh no, you're infecting my girls. And so from that point onwards, after 2020, in 2021, they released, this is their only EP. I don't know why they decided to release an EP now. Everything else has been singles or albums or compilation albums. This is their only EP, Polygon Wave, and it follows suit with Time Warp, where it's like 70s, 80s synth poppy sound, very funky with some of the songs. I think the songs off of here are good. Objectively, I think they're good. However, like I said, when it all starts to sound the same, I start to cry because it's starting to sound like that 180s note, essentially. Because all the drums from the 80s songs start to sound the same to me. You can only have a reverb snare so many times before you want to tear out your eardrums. But from Polygon Wave onward, they released Flow. Now, Flow is weird. And also, Nochi stands really awkwardly in this photo. And I hate the gloves that they put Kashiuka in. It's like rubber gloves. But regardless, they released Flow, which was a single. It had the main title track Flow. I don't know why that's the title track they decided to go with. And then the B-side called Mirror Ball, Mawaru Kagami, which in a similar vein, Flow sounds nothing like the retro future. Mirror Ball does. And so I was like, okay, I think this is where the album's gonna turn if they release an album with this. Lo and behold, 2022, Plasma. They release. It's called Plasma. Want to know why? I don't know, especially considering the main title track off of it that they use was where they're acting like dolls, and it's called Spitting World. So I don't know, but the entirety of this album, I would say more than likely probably under future pop for me. However, as a whole, I don't hate Plasma. You'll see what I mean because I've come to hate the newest things. But Plasma, I feel like, was the herald of the harbinger, if you will, of the apocalypse. That was Yasutaka Nakata saying, I want to make 80s music for the rest of your career. And so this at least had identity of Perfume with like that retro future vibe. Moving on, they released a single called Moon in 2023 with a B-side called Love Cloud. Love Cloud, a bop, a funky jam. Moon, still fun. I can dance to it. It was in a similar vibe to like Plasma. Like I could see it being on Plasma and it made sense. So I was like, okay, maybe they're just still in that era. But then they started releasing some digital singles, and then they released this. This is Nebula Romance Part 1. And this was released last year. Almost on Halloween. Or Halloween. Halloween's 31st or 30th. Am I crazy?
Halloween is the 31st.
So, almost Halloween. because
Almost Halloween,
they
the
were
day
trying
before
to
Halloween.
scare me, and it succeeded. Because basically, what Plasma did was it took this retro synthwave aesthetic and it put a Perfume spin on it. What Nebula Romance did was it took Perfume and it said, let's pretend to be someone else for once. And they decided to pretend to be this retro future synth pop sound where they started ditching a lot of their previous like hallmarks, like the processed vocals, the pretty like synthesized harmonies and everything, or like their electro beat. And they turned exclusively to this retro synth sound. And it sounded more and more like they were trying to pretend to be someone else rather than having their own spin on something. And then this year, they released Nebula Romance
Fairly recently.
Part 2. They released it recently. And I can genuinely say I listened to both Nebula Romance Part 1 and Part 2. And I absolutely despise it. And it's not because I think they sound bad, as in the girls. They can sing. They've been singing for 25 years. But it's that it doesn't sound like Perfume. And these two are basically supposed to be concept linked albums. So they're supposed to follow a story that I don't know, because I was so disinterested I never bothered looking into what the story was. But it has to do with robots, them being humans that fell down to Earth and then eventually being put into a computer. Like, I don't know. But they have guns. I don't know why. They're shooting robots. I don't know why. But these two albums make me so sad that this is basically their final hurrah before they go on an indefinite hiatus, because they've had so many things that were so good. And I'm not like talking all the way back to their first Game album or anything, but like anything else, even the Plasma era, if they wanted to continue with that vibe, I would have been fine. But this just makes it seem like when they're leaving as not even themselves. So,
With a whimper rather than a
in their last
hurrah.
tour, which they did, was a Nebula Romance Part 2 Dome tour. So they did 2 shows in Tokyo Dome. Their last concert was a Nebula Romance 2 theme, obviously. And they performed a bunch of the songs, some of which I was like, okay, I can see it. Because a lot of their songs, if you don't necessarily like it, when you see them actually perform it, it makes it better because it's almost like the experience. But then the other songs, I was like, hate my vibe, don't like it. I liked when they got on scooters. That's about it. But then after that, they performed a melody of their hits because, you know, this is them before going into cold sleep. And then they disappeared into a vat of drones that flew up and created the form of them in 3D. Like I said, technological performance. They're known for it. All that kind of stuff. But yeah, so in the final moments, I watched them and I cried, not for the fact that I'm losing them, but that I'm losing them to Nebula Romance Part 2. So I will, now that I've gone, you know, I say briefly, that I've briefly gone over her entire timeline, I will cover a quick segment before we go. And yes, this is real. She really did do that once. Now, I have made a lovely little bingo card, which is more like just my own thoughts and opinions, as well as forgotten B-sides that I feel like are not often talked about enough. And the B-sides can be specifically B-sides of singles or album songs. A lot of them could be, but there are some very specific ones that I feel like no one talks about. Now, first going over the lovely card, of which none of you will understand, but I get to talk about it in length. Their most underrated song to me is Koi wa Zenke Shisei. The reason why is it's basically a slower song, and it's off of the Sweet Refrain single, but Sweet Refrain in and of itself was already kind of a slower song, but because it had like dubstep interludes, it felt full without having to be fast. Whereas Koi wa Zenke Shisei is a slow song, and it knows it's a slow song, but it's a song where you hear a little wooden knock like all the time, and it makes you feel like Santa Claus is banging your head on his sleigh, and you like that. And
Okay, sure.
they say pineapple, they say strawberry, but they say pineapple and sutora berry. So you can't be mad at it. And I'm pretty sure I've only seen that they performed this song live a single time, which is not uncommon for some of these B-sides that you will hear. Their most overrated song to me is by far Chocolate Disco, because they will always perform it. At every single live they've ever done, they performed it at their last concert. They did Chocolate Disco because they know it's the song that basically got them where they are. And I respect that. However, if I have to hear them saying Chocolate Ito Disco one more time, as they are basically pretending to mix up batter and lick their finger, I'm going to lose it. Now, for the best lyrics, I didn't choose what I thought would be the smartest best lyrics, because 575 is a really creative use of lyrics. I chose what I thought was the best lyrics for fun's sake, because Hurly Barley has hilarious lyrics like Hurly Burly Party, Juicy Juicy Sweetie, Hurly Burly Party, what's your favorite flavor? No, they don't tell you what the flavor is of or what they're asking about, but it's in the song. And if anything, I would say it goes up with probably very underrated, as it didn't make the cut to level 3. And I don't understand why, because it makes more sense than Mirai no Museum ever did. Now, I personally almost chose 2 other different music videos, but I picked Magic of Love as the best music video overall, because it was between Sweet Refrain, the short display music video, and Magic of Love. Solely based off of the fact that they did a lot of cool editing in all 3 of them. But in Magic of Love, they did a lot of different kinds of editing, which I think took it over the top. And I very specifically remember a point in time, because in the music video, there's a point where they basically Nochi throws confetti at the camera, and then it comes back into her hand and her hand in a reverse shot. And then you see them dancing after that, and like confetti is falling upwards rather than downwards. And I was like, that's cool. I wonder how they did that. It wasn't until the second watch, or rather like halfway through the first watch, that I realized they were doing the choreography for Magic of Love backwards, and they reversed the footage, but it looked like they were doing it forwards. So they learned the choreography in reverse. And I thought that was so cool. And also so tedious, but they did it. And so that's one of the reasons why I was like, yeah, Magic of Love makes sense. It's colorful, it's fun. They do a lot of stupid hand gestures. You'll love it. I'm like a used car salesman. And for the most emotional, it was between My Color, which I feel like is a very specific concert song for them, where they always get the audience to engage with them with their stupid little finger dance. But I instead chose Star Train, because, in my personal opinion, Star Train is kind of like them reflecting on their 15-year-ish anniversary, 10 to 15-year anniversary. And it showed them like looking back at everything. And I just think, because it's in the song itself, they're basically talking about how like the music and like being able to perform and everything is the main reason that they keep going. And so I think that just overall is the most emotional song comparatively. The most genius song, I think, is Polyrhythm, for 2 reasons. One, the fact that it goes with the recycling ad of like basically going over and over and over and over and over again, as well as the fact that they utilize actual polyrhythms in how they delivered lyrics. I thought that was cool. And also, they knew what they were doing, making a trash can throwback. It's dumpy. So, best chorus, I would give to a album exclusive song off of Game called Plastic Smile, because once you listen to it, you will keep saying like that'll be stuck in your head forever. And it's because it works so well. And then for the best song ever, I have to go with my OG girl Daijoubu, because she is the perfumiest of Perfume songs. For the worst song ever, I have to go with its single counterpart, Mirai no Museum, You Bitch. Because you don't fit anywhere, You shouldn't be here. You should have been on Nebula Romance Part 2. So, then ranking just like how they looked in individual places. Best Kashiuka, I ranked as 1mm. In the music video for Level 3, which was their main 1mm song, which was their album track essentially, Kashiuka, who had up until this point always had a heavy blunt bang, mostly to her forehead, you know, obviously since Polyrhythm, which was forever ago, she did a side sweep and she reminded everyone that she does in fact have a forehead, and people lost it. And I think it was one of the moments to go for, because I remember when I was first learning the members, I genuinely thought they had changed who one of them was because she did not look the same. And I was like, did they at one point have a different person? No, it's the same girl. She just always has a blunt bang normally. Now, for Best Achan, like I said, they had a lot of dresses that made her look like she was wearing a potato sack. I will say, if you see the game dress up close, even though she is covered in paper fans, which I find an interesting detail, she also has like a tiara on randomly, and she has like a bunch of pearls on. Like, the entire game direction is psychotic, but also really cool. And I think this made her look almost like this weird princess debutante, but goth, because all of them were wearing these like really black outfits. And so I think that's the best one I can think of, at least, that works specifically for her. And then for Nochi, I specifically picked the modern outfits that they wore in the Flow music video. Not the pink ones where she was standing awkwardly, but the modern ones where she was put in like full-on red outfit, red pants, black combat boots, a red puffy jacket. People kept comparing her to Akira because they're like, oh, she's going to her bike. But I think this looks so cool, and I wish they would have done this more for different videos and or album shoots of photos and everything. They didn't, because their agency hates me. Now, for their most underrated album, I would say a lot of people shit on Cosmic Explorer. I think it's because comparative to Level 3, which was like considered a really, really good album, this one conceptually didn't make sense, which I agree with. It doesn't make sense. There's nothing cosmic about it. But I think the songs on it by themselves, if you listen to it almost like a compilation of songs, which is kind of what an album is, it sounds good. And something that I would say Perfume does really well is on a lot of their albums, single songs that they released previously, they'll make album mixes on their albums themselves so that it's not like the exact copy and paste song. And they did that with a bunch of their single songs. And it's not even necessarily that I think that it is a better version of the song, but I like the fact that there's different versions of the song, if that makes sense, because you love a good variety moment. Shinny, I'm quivering because I have no food in me. I'm running on caffeine, and I've been talking for the past like almost 2 hours. Their most overrated album, I think personally, is JPN. Not saying it's a bad album. I think it has very good songs on it, but I don't understand why people think it's their best album, considering everything else that they have. That's all I have to say. Their best album, I personally love Game. I have a physical copy of it that is unopened. Like, I'm that psychotic. And I have the entire Game song, like, album saved on iTunes, Spotify, wherever. And I think it's the best album of theirs because it is like the quintessential beginning of their identity. Of like, this is when they really solidified who they were and the kinds of songs that they were going to kind of like release and be known for in like that techno pop, super like electronic sounding genre, while also still simultaneously very much sounding like tiny little Japanese girls on all of these songs. And vice versa, their worst album, in my opinion, is their latest album. You might call me a purist. I would not disagree, but I think just, it's like from Game to Nebula Romance, it feels like they lost the plot. And I think that's what makes me sad. because I wish they would have at least kept some form of their identity. Because even through like JPN and Cosmic Explorer, it still sounded like Perfume. Nebula Romance doesn't sound like Perfume to me. And then here are some forgotten B-sides. Hurly Burly being one of them. Handyman, that's a fun one. If you ever want to hear what it sounds like to have a monkey playing a cymbal in only your left ear for the entirety of a song, listen to Handyman. And also they have the weird like fiddle moment that's constantly happening in your right ear. So like, it's a trip. But then also there's Secret Message, there's Inyoku, which was the B-side off of Vitamin Drop. Foundation, which was, I believe, a B-side off of Computer City. And to me, it sounds like the 2D Pokemon Gen music. If you listen to it, which I will send you a link to it, you might understand what I'm talking about, Sarah.
Probably.
Then we have Edge, Love the World Music, Love the World Music, Love the World Mix, because it's different than Triangle Mix. I kid you not. The Edge that is on the Triangle album is called Edge Triangle Mix. And there's not really a way to explain it other than it's more of a concert song, because it's like really hardcore and goes on like droning almost for certain bits, but regardless. 2330, good slow song. 575, good slow song. Communication kind of sounds like a Kyari Pami Pami song. Ijiwa Runa Hello was a B-side off of Kling Kling that didn't make it anywhere else, but Hold Your Hand did. I don't understand how. And then Domain Again, which was off of the Relax in the City and Pick Me Up single. They've only performed it like twice ever, and it's a really good like EDM song. And Imitation World was a song that they originally had way back here, but then they never released it officially, and then they made a revamped version of it that released on the Star Train single, and no one cared about it, but I did because I was like, I remember this song. So yeah, that's Perfume. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope that maybe I could encourage you to at least check out any one of their singles or albums. You don't have to listen to the whole thing, just one song. If you hate it, that's okay. I hate some of their music too. But yeah, so that's my TED Talk. I'm lightheaded and I'm hungry.
You should go eat
and I'm
something.
sweating profusely. Like, I don't think you understand how wet I am right now. So on that note, I'm gonna end it here, and we're gonna see you in 2 weeks. So see you later. Goodbye.
Bye.